We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Amud Beis Meseches Beitzah. This is Beitzah Daf 30b. The Mishnah says, "Ein notelin eitzim min hasukah ela min hasamachla." You're not allowed to take wood from the sukkah unless it is nearby. Rashi over here explains, "Ein notelin eitzim min hasukah could go on Pesach or Batzeres." We're talking here about, let's say, on Pesach, or we're talking about on Shavuos, not on Sukkos. V'yoshe b'sukkah, the person is just sitting in a hut. Begino b'pardes, he's in a garden, he's in an orchard. In other words, just sitting there for the enjoyment of Yontif. So ein notelin eitzim min hasukah ela min hasamachla. So what the Mishnah is saying is you can't take wood from that sukkah unless you're taking it from nearby. Hashta mashma. Right now, what does it mean? What does the Gemara think it means when it says min hasamachla? It means imhu av. Let's say the schach is very thick. Shenosnu konim harbe. You had a lot of reeds that you put there on top. So mutter litol mehem. It sounds like if you have a lot of it, so then you're allowed to take. Uva Gemara parach, the Gemara is going to ask, hasasar Allah, but how could you take? Aren't you destroying the oel? The sukkah is considered an oel. It's a piece of construction. It's something that is built, and you're destroying it. Tekevon debatle lagabe schach, because if you put it there on top and it's bottled to the schach, it's part of the roof of the sukkah. Called porsa the shakal minei stirahu. So if you're going to take even a little amount, that's going to be stira. So how could you say that on yontiv you're allowed to take from this schach to use the wood on yontiv? You shouldn't be allowed to do that. It should be a problem of stira that the Gemara is going to ask. And so the Gemara says, "Ma'ishna min hasukah delo de kasasar ohala." What's the difference when it comes to the sukkah? You're not allowed to take wood from there because you're destroying the ohel. Min hasamach lanami kasasar ohala. Exactly what Rashi said. From nearby, meaning again, if you have a lot of schach and you want to take from there, that should also be a problem of destroying the ohel. And so the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Yudah, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yudah says in the name of Shmuel, "Mai samach." What does it mean in the Mishnah when it says samach? Samach ledefanos. It means to say we're talking about the wood that's near the walls. We're not talking about the wood that's extra from the schach. We're talking about near the walls. And Rashi over here explains samach ledefanos, near the walls. Kanim hanizkafim sevivos ledefanos. What happened was around the walls they would lean some wood against the wall. So kevan shelo ner guim hadof, and since it's not actually attached, part of the wall itself was just leaning against the wall, so lo batli lagabe dofen, so it's not bottled to the wall. Ve'eno dome l'samach l'schach. That's not similar to being near the schach. Shaschach eno arg, because the schach is not built, it's not attached, it's just laying there on top. Lefikach hakol shava. Therefore, all schach is the same. Ha'elyon ketachton schach. It doesn't matter if it's up on top or if it's lower. It's all considered schach. It would all equally be a problem of stiras oel. But the items that are leaning against the wall that are not actually part of the wall, that would not be a problem. And the Gemara continues, Rav Menashe says, Afilu tema b'she'ein samach ledefanos. You could even say that our Mishnah is talking about a situation where it's not near the walls, but it's actually near the schach. But kitan yahi bisuraisa. But what are we talking about in the Mishnah? We're talking about when we're talking about wood that is bound up. Rashi over here says, Afilu tema b'she'ein samach ledefanos ela samach l'schach. Again, we could be talking in the Mishnah that it's near the schach. V'chitanya masnisin bisuraisa chavilo shel konim shenisan al schach. The case is you have bundles of konim, bundles of reeds that are placed on top of the schach. They haven't been untied. Midelo hiter ogdan, from the fact that you didn't untie them, lo batalinu legabe schach. That shows they're not bottled to the schach. They're not really a part of the ceiling. Elul hatzniam sham, you were just storing them over there, so it's not going to be a problem of stiras oel if you take those konim. And the Gemara continues, Tani Rabbi Chia bar Yosef kamed Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Chia bar Yosef taught in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Ein notlin eitzim min hasukah ela min hasamachla. Exactly like our Mishnah, you're not allowed to take wood from the sukkah. You're only allowed to take min hasamachla, that which is nearby. Rabbi Shimon matir. Rabbi Shimon says it's mutter to take eitzim from the sukkah, even if it's not samachla, it's going to be permitted. V'shavin b'sukkahs hachag b'chag shasur. Now everybody agrees when you're talking about a sukkah on sukkahs, that's for sure going to be prohibited. V'im hisna le'a kolafit to know. But if you make a tanai beforehand, you make a condition before yontiv, then you could just follow the condition, and then it might be okay. So the Gemara now asks, for Rabbi Shimon matir, it said that Rabbi Shimon says it's mutter to take eitzim from the sukkah, even from the area that's not samachla. So v'hakasasar Allah, there certainly, if it's not min hasamachla, certainly it's going to be a problem of stiras oel. You're destroying the oel. How could Rabbi Shimon say that it's mutter? So the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Hacha b'sukkah nofelas askinon. Here we're talking about a sukkah that has fallen down. and so therefore there's no problem of destroying an oil. It's already destroyed. The issue only is muksa. In such a situation, you do have an issue of muksa. As Rashi over here says, no fella shenafla beyond of the lekastira oil. There's certainly no problem of destroying an oil. The time of the Tanakama mishum muksa. The reason of the Tanakama that you're not allowed to take the eitzim from the sukkah is because of muksa. Because bein hashmashos, the sukkah was fully up, and therefore it was muksa. Machmas isur stira, there was a problem of destroying it. Aval hasamach lo lav muksu. Now, obviously, that which was samach, that which was near the sukkah, is not muksa. The last bein mishum stira, like we said earlier in the Gemara, the samach law is always not a problem of stira, so therefore it wasn't muksa. So again, that's the reason of the Tanakam. It's an issue of muksa by a sukkah that fell down. Rabbi Shimon l'taime, and Rabbi Shimon, who says it's mutter, he follows his own opinion. The lesle muksa, as we've said before, Rabbi Shimon does not hold of muksa, and therefore it's not a problem. The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, moser hashemin shebener v'shebekara. Let's say you have a candle that goes out, so then you have some leftover oil, so that's aser. The Tanakama says it's aser because of muksa. Rabbi Shimon matir, and Rabbi Shimon says it's mutter again because Rabbi Shimon does not hold of muksa just because the candle was burning at bein hashmashos, but once the fire goes out, so then again Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold the muksa, so it's not a problem. Same thing over here. When the sukkah falls down, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not a problem to take the wood. But the Gemara says, mi dummy, can you really compare the case of the candle to the case of the sukkah? Over there, a person is waiting and knows that the candle is going to go out, so he has in mind that he might want to use the leftover oil. But over here by a sukkah is a person waiting for his sukkah to fall down. He didn't have this in mind at all, so therefore even Rabbi Shimon should agree it's a problem of muksa. So the Gemara answers, Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, or of Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Hacha b'sukkah ru'ua askinon. Over here we're talking about a sukkah that is shaky, it's going to fall down. To Mayas Moldai to Ilave already from before Yontif, he had in mind that it might fall down, and therefore again, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not going to be a problem. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, V'shavin b'sukkah hachag b'chag shi'asura. We said previously, everybody agrees when it comes to a sukkah on sukkahs, it's going to be asur. V'im hisna ala kol afitano. But if you make a condition, you can follow the condition. And so the Gemara asks, Umi mahani botanai, does a condition really help? Are you suddenly allowed to take from the wood of the sukkah on sukkahs if you make a condition? V'yomer Rav Sheishas mishum Rabbi Akiva, but didn't Rav Sheishas say, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, minayin la'atzei sukkah she'asur and kol shiva, from where is the source that the wood of the sukkah is asur all 7 days of sukkahs? Shenemar, because the pasuk says, Chag ha'sukkos shivas yomim la'Hashem. It says the Chag of sukkahs is 7 days. V'tanyan, we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Omer, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says, minayin shekashem shechol shem shamayim ala chagiga. How do we know that just like the korban chagiga, the shalmei chagiga, they become hektish, they become asur? Kach chol shem shamayim ala sukkah. How do we know that the same thing is true by the sukkah itself? The sukkah itself also has a certain type of kedusha, and it can be asur. So Talmud Lomer, it's because of this pasuk. The pasuk says Chag hasukkos shivas yomim laHashem. It says Chag hasukkos. And it says it's la Hashem, it's for Hashem. Machag la Hashem, just like the korban chagiga is designated for Hashem, af sukkah la Hashem, so too the sukkah is designated for Hashem, and that's why the atzei sukkah, the wood of the sukkah, is asur for all 7 days of sukkahs. So in any case, you see over here it's asur. So the question still is, are you able to make a tanai to get out of that? Why should you be able to make a tanai if it comes from a pasuk? So the Gemara says, Amar of Menashia Berei de Rava, of Menashia Berei de Rava says, Seifo ason l'sukkah dialma. You're right. At the end, when we said that you can make a condition, we're talking about a sukkah not on sukkahs, a sukkah dialma. There you can make a condition to take from the wood. Avol sukkah de mitzvah lo mahani batana. But when it comes to the sukkah that is used for the mitzvah of sukkahs, that, like we said, it's learned from a pasuk. The shem shamayim is chal on the sukkah, and therefore a condition does not help. But the Gemara says, is that really true? V'sukkah de mitzvah lo, is it really true that the sukkah of sukkahs of the mitzvah, you're not allowed to make a condition? V'atanya, but we learned in a brayso, sichacha kehilchasa, let's say you put the schacha properly, v'itra b'kramim u'v'sadinin ha'mitzuyarin, v'tolaba agozim, shkedim, afarsikim, v'rimonim, u'farchile anavim, yeno, shemonim, v'siltos, v'itaru shibolim. Case basically is you're decorating the sukkah with all kinds of things, with scarves, with nuts, with pomegranates, etc. So asr l'stapik mehen ad motzai yom tov ha'achron shel chag. You're not allowed to use those decorations for your own benefit until after the final day of Yom Tov of Sukkos. V'im hisna aleim hakol lefi tano. But it says in the brayso, if you made a tanai, you can follow the tanai. So you see, on the contrary, apparently you are allowed to follow the tanai. And so the Gemara answers, Abaye v'Rava da'amri tarvayu. Abaye and Rava both say, Ba'omer eini bodel mehem kol bein hashmoshes. The case over here by the decorations is when you say, even at bein hashmoshes, even when Sukkot begins, I'm not going to separate from them, I'm going to partake. Lo chala kedusha alayu. There's no kedusha at all on these items that you're using for decoration. Aval atzei sukkah, but when it comes to the wood of the actual sukkah, you can't say bein hashmoshes you're going to take, because it's yontiv. That would be destroying the sukkah, so you can't say that by the atzei sukkah. So dechala kedusha alayu, once the kedusha starts at the outset of yontiv bein hashmoshes, it's katzai l'shiva, it becomes muksa for all 7 days of sukkahs. And Rashi over here explains, Abaya v'Rava da'amri tarvayu dulo damu l'sukkah. You can't compare the decorations to the sukkah linyan tana when it comes to the tanai. V'afagav debatli l'gabon. Now, even though the decorations are also batal and they become part of the sukkah, d'chimahani tana ba'omer mi ba'od yom eni bodel mehem, because the case over here is, you said from before yontiv you're not going to separate from these decorations. Miyos kochi u'zuchusi b'hem. You want to have your authority over these things. Litlan kol shos orech shel bein hashmos. You want to be able to take and partake of them for the entire bein hashmos shel erev yontiv, of when yontiv begins. Hilkach b'shas bias hayom. So therefore, if you make such a condition, so when yontiv starts, shaisa kedusha, where the kedusha is, tzrich halachal aleim, that's when the kedusha was supposed to be chal. Lo chal, it's not going to be chal, because you said right at the beginning of yontiv you're going to be using these items. Lafikach lo huksa, therefore they don't become muksa. Aval atzei sukkah, but the wood of the sukkah itself, sheino yachol lahasnos aleim tanaize. You can't make this kind of condition on the wood. Sharei al karcho yibadil mehem bein hashmoshes, because you have to separate from the wood of the sukkah bein hashmoshes, mishum desasar Allah, because there you have a different problem, a problem of stiras oel. You're going to be destroying the oel, destroying the sukkah. Ubein hashmoshes suffik yontiv. Ubein hashmoshes is already a suffik, it might be yontiv. So there chala kedusha alayu. There the kedusha is chal on the atzei sukkah. Val yedei kedusha zu huksa l'shiva. Through this kedusha, it becomes muksa for all 7 days. Masha'in kain, by the decorations. But the Gemara continues, u'ma'ishna mehad de'itmar. But what's the difference between this case, the case again of the atzei sukkah, and the following? It says hifre shiva esrogim l'shivas hayomim. It says, let's say a person separated 7 esrogim for these 7 days of sukkahs. So Amar Rav says kol achas v'achas. So now you have an esrog for every day. So each one yotzei ba v'ochlal alter. He can be yotzei the mitzvah, and then he could eat it immediately. Rav Asi says kol achas, each one yotzei ba v'ochlal l'machar. He can be yotzei with it, and he has to wait at least till the next day. In other words, the point is, since it became muksa according to Rav Asi, so it's muksa for that entire one day, but you can already use it the next day. So why is that different than the atzei sukkah? By the atzei sukkah, we say once it becomes muksa bein hashmoshes, at the outset of sukkah, it's muksa for all 7 days. But when it comes to the esrogim, we're saying it's only muksa at most for 1 day. And so the Gemara answers, no, hasam over there, the mifsaku leilos miyamim. There's a separation of night and day, meaning there's no mitzvah of esrog at night. So you have a separation, you have a pause. So kol chad v'chad yom mitzvah be'apei nafshayu. So each individual day is its own mitzvah, and therefore we say it's only muksa at most for that day. The next day already, it's not going to be a problem. But hacha delo mifsaku leilos miyamim. But over here, where we're talking about the sukkah, where there is no separation, there's a mitzvah of sukkah at daytime and at nighttime. So therefore, kulu yomei kechada yoma richta dami. All the days of sukkahs are like one long day. Once it becomes muksa at the beginning of sukkahs, it's going to be muksa the entire time. We'll continue in the next video on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph.